Joining us now is congressional candidate for Texas 25th District, Heidi Sloan. Welcome to the Damage Report.
Thank you so much.
Glad to have you here. You are running in a congressional district in the Austin area, correct?
That's right. It is in the Austin area and is about a 4.5-hour swath right through the heart of Texas.
Okay, there you go. Now, you background-wise, you've been an activist around the homelessness issue. That's correct?
That's right. Both in my organizing life and in my professional life have worked alongside people experiencing homelessness for the last 8 years.
So I lived in Austin for a number of years while I was going to grad schools, and I knew even at that point, and this is a bit ago, that homelessness was a significant issue. And I think that nationally, when the issue gets talked about, generally we focus on like the San Francisco area, the LA area, New York potentially, but it is significant throughout the country. And so what has that work been like for you, and how do you feel it's prepared you for political office?
Right. So the issue of homelessness, like so many of the issues that we are up against on a federal level, is highly intersectional. In Austin, an extremely disproportionate amount of people experiencing homelessness are Black people and brown people. And while in Austin, generally the population of Black people is actually shrinking, the population of people experiencing homelessness who are Black is going up. In addition to that, we know that homelessness is related to access to healthcare, access to education, wages that keep up with the cost of living. And so knowing individuals who have experienced chronic homelessness, people who have been on the streets for 10 or 20 or 30 years at a time, and seeing how all of those factors have come into a play in their individual lives has really prepared me to go out and to drive towards systemic solutions to this problem, rather than saying that homelessness is just an issue of affordable housing, which we know that has a lot to do with it. Homelessness, especially chronic homelessness, which is a significant number of the people who we see under overpasses and in tents around Austin, is so much more than that. It has everything to do with a system that seeks to profit off of people and has this race to the bottom that does so much harm to the most vulnerable among us.
So in your activist work, you've been doing what you can to help out these people, these communities. If you were to make it into Congress, what sort of legislation would you be pushing for to potentially fix the problem in Austin and in other parts of the US?
Yeah, so I like this question, and yet at the same time, I'm going to push back just a little bit, because I think we can do so much on the way to Congress, and we have been. For the last 2 years, I have been organizing with people across the state of Texas to pursue Medicare for all, single payer healthcare, where we are all in the same system and can move from that space towards equity, is one of the largest determining factors in how long people experience homelessness, how much harm that they experience during that process, and how quickly we can recover, both for those who have fallen deeply, deeply through the cracks and for the rest of the working class as well. In addition to healthcare, of course, we're working on housing. We are pushing for affordable housing options here in Austin, and also understanding that at a local level, we really bump up against some. In the state of Texas, for example, the legislature has preempted work that was done by housing organizers a number of years ago in Austin. The organizers were pushing for non-discrimination laws against vouchers. So people could move into apartments and homes and use vouchers without someone saying they can't move in because of the source of income. Well, the state of Texas has preempted that, and they said that discrimination on income is totally acceptable here, which is another reason why we push up to the top, up to the federal and the universal level, to make sure that we are building as strong of a campaign for housing as a human right as possible. We're talking to our neighbors right now about things like rent control, which I don't think anyone in Texas has really pushed for previously, but is extremely popular door to door, especially as everyone is feeling the squeeze here locally.
Well, look, we might have gotten into it a little bit with some of the proposals you suggested there, but in terms of your ideology, your background, you're a member of the DSA. How would you describe yourself politically? What part of the Democratic Party would you say that you reside in?
That's a great question. And this race has really helped me to think through that. I like when we talk about Democratic versus Republican, to also make sure that we are thinking three-dimensionally and also talking about whether we are advocating on behalf of the poor and the working class, or advocating for those who are in power right now and for business as usual in the top 1% made up of the millionaires and the billionaires. And so while I am a Democrat running on the Democratic ticket and pushing that as far to what we would call the left as possible, what I am ultimately trying to do is draw a distinction between policies that come from people who have existing and hegemonic power in our country towards policies that are stemming directly from the grassroots leadership of the working class. I'm a democratic socialist, and for me, that means that I am constantly pursuing the democratic voice of all people, whether it is at the ballot, which is extremely important, of course, and we should be expanding access to the ballot and to voting rights, especially for those who have been justice impacted in our country. But also, I believe in democracy in our workplaces. I believe in democracy in our healthcare, in our school system, neighborhoods, and in our homes. And so while yes, electoral politics is the sort of common manifestation of democratic power, I also want to be engaging people, the working class and the poor in particular, in building their own power in these spaces that are not normally considered democratic, but in order to root out the many nefarious fingers of capitalism, I think we have to be talking about things like tenant organizing associations, like student groups, like the PTA, like the school board, all of these many manifestations of where politics pursues us in our life, and we are told that that is just life, and that politics is just our vote.
Well, finally, you mentioned going up against the people who have the power and have had it for some time. One of those people is Roger Williams, the current Republican incumbent. Apparently, one of the wealthiest members of Congress, a former used car salesman, so great reputation there. It seems like an odd match for the district, considering the nature of Austin and of the people that live there. So talk to me about differentiating yourself, which seems like it won't be difficult, from the current incumbent.
Roger Williams, in addition to everything that you have just listed, which always blows my mind and is sort of a caricature of the rich politician, Roger Williams claims to be representing the working class of District 25. He claims to have roots here, and actually he inherited his business and does not come out and talk with people on the ground until he is absolutely forced to do so. Most of the time, it's closed door fundraising parties.
Yeah.
And when we look at Roger Williams' donors, it's Goldman Sachs, it's Wells Fargo, it is land developers, mortgage insurance companies, and banks. Mm-hmm. And he speaks for them in his policy. So what I intend to do, and what we are doing on the trail every single day, is pointing out that good policy is not something that comes from a party alliance. Good policy is judged on how it affects the people, and talking to folks in places like Lampasas and Killeen, these more rural areas that have been red for a very long time, and not talking to them about, well, your Republican identity, but your identity as a person who is struggling, whose local hospital has been shut down, and who is making those choices for you, and how come you don't have a voice to affect that. Really just drawing lines and showing receipts for the first time in a really long time.
Okay, well, very exciting candidacy. Like I said, I lived in Austin for a number of years. Still have a strong connection to it, and so you seem like a great fit for my memory of what the area is like. He's a strong incumbent, obviously, but I wish you the best of luck in your challenge against him, Heidi.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you. For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.